Another Vice palette. This is an easy keep for me as well. This is one of my favorite palettes. There's a lot of good things in here. A lot of good things. Love this column. Love this one. Love this gold as well. Easy keep. I'm trying not to take too much from the bottom, but I have another Stila palette. This is the In the Know palette. This is one of the first palettes I had that I really liked. One of the shades in here is depotted as well, because I went through a phase where I was trying to depot a bunch of different things. I wanted to see what was easier. So this was a neutral palette I used for a long time. I was obsessed with this. This is like the eyeshadow that made me realize I really loved orange shadows, but this is such an old palette. It's so dry now. It just doesn't perform that well. I tried using this and I ended up putting it down and picking up something else because it just does not work that well anymore. It was once great and I loved it. It's just, it served its purpose. It's time to let it go. It's a little sad, just because it was a palette that I learned a lot from. Here's a little tiny quad from CoverGirl. This has some shade. I know without even swatching it, I'm going to get rid of this. This is like from my buy everything at the drugstore because it's on sale phase. And just hang on to it because you never know. That was always my thing. I just kept everything because, well, you never know. And I kept trying to justify things to myself like, well, maybe I'll start doing like drugstore tutorials. Please, I do like one tutorial every 6 months maybe if I'm lucky. So this is a little mini guy from Sephora. I think this came free, I want to say. Maybe. There's a little brush in here that's interesting because it's got a pointed side. I want to get this to focus in. Yeah. Isn't that kind of cool? It's got like a little angled brush side. I've never used this obviously, but even if I get rid of this palette, I think I'll keep that because that looks like a really cool thing to like travel with. I vaguely remember swatching these before. Oh, there's a glittery shade. You know, I'm swatching it and I'm like, I don't hate this. Why haven't I used this? They feel so smooth, I just can't get rid of it. I'm gonna hang on to it and hope I use it. I know that's like a excuse everybody hates in decluttering videos, but you know what? I don't care. I'm not gonna get rid of something because somebody else thinks that I should, because that's just stupid. I have this little trio from Wet n Wild, which I do not remember owning. I don't remember owning this. Have I ever used this? Probably not. Probably not. I probably bought it because of this shade here, which really reminds me of that Asphyxia shade from Urban Decay, but I honestly do not remember ever putting this on my eye. I probably bought it in one of those phases where I thought that I was going to be a beauty guru. Buy the drugstore, everything. So silly. That's kind of the weird thing about being like almost an average makeup consumer, but also making YouTube videos, is that you go through those phases every now and then. So those swatches though, hi. Hello. I think I need to play with this. Like I don't even remember even swatching this before, and now looking at these swatches, I'm just like, yeah, that's kind of nice. That's kind of nice. So I'll keep that. Pretty bad when you have stuff in your collection that you don't remember owning. Like I don't remember owning that. I don't remember buying that. Maybe somebody gave it to me. I feel kind of sad, but that's why I'm doing this. This is another palette that I bought in one of those phases. This is LA Girl Neons. Yeah, I don't even think I swatched this, to be honest. I might have swatched like 1 or 2 of the shades. So there's some of that blue though. That blue is really nice. I feel like there's something I could do with this. There's 7 things I'm getting rid of so far, which is 7 things I was holding on to. So very good. I have this Buxom. This is Custom Shadows again. I won't be getting rid of any of these ones. I haven't used them in a while, but they're nice. Can I say? Like that silver. That's an amazing shadow. I need to use silver more. I just love silver, so. Keeping that. I have this little sample thing, I think. This is from Lancome. And these are some baby shadows. I think I am gonna hang on to that one though. Can't give an excuse for everything, but I'm gonna get rid of this one. This is from L'Oreal, again from my drugstore phase. Not that drugstore stuff is bad, just to say that there are some good things. Like I swatched out Wet n Wild. There's just some things I bought when they were already old. Like I bought already old products that just didn't perform well at the time, so they're not good now. Here's another Stila palette that I'm gonna have to get rid of. I don't even want to open this one because I know this is in the light. I just love the shade Kitten, but I'm pretty sure Kitten, which is this shade right here, is available as a single. So I'm gonna get rid of this palette, potentially buy Kitten as a single at some point. I'll have to look into it and see if Kitten is available. I don't have like my phone near me right now, so look it up. But if Kitten isn't available, I'll probably depot it because I think it still works fine. Yeah, like it's a beautiful shadow. I think it's really pretty, but there's really nothing else in that palette that I would want to use. So decluttering for now, potentially depotting Kitten. I think a brand new one would probably be better, but we'll see. This is the Naked Heat palette. I did a full review on this thing. I love this palette. That one's staying. This is a Z palette full of my Makeup Geek shadows, which is a formula that I also really love. A formula that I want to use more of. And yet another Z palette with some miscellaneous shadows in here. There's some things that I depotted, some NYX shadows, some Anastasia Shiseido. No, not Shiseido. Is it Shiseido? Shuamura. Single. This vibrant orange shade there. But I am going to get rid of one of these shades. Like the yellow up in the corner is from the Anastasia Artist palette, which was a palette I depotted a while ago. But I did depot a Sephora Pantone Universe palette that had all these square shadows in it, and I just don't need to keep these anymore. They're not the greatest shadows, and they've definitely been worn by time as well. So I liked the palette at the time. It was pretty cool. It had different shadows inspired by elements, and they had different little prints on it, and I really did enjoy using it. Just I bought too many things at one point, and I just didn't end up using everything. So I'm going to get rid of that one. And I know that that's in some of these palettes as well, and I might as well start getting into them. So here is another Z palette here with some more miscellaneous shadows. There is this guy here from the Stila palette. Yeah, so this is from In the Know. Oh, it's made my hands really dirty. Yeah, so that's the black shadow. You can see how dirty it just made my hands, but I'm getting rid of that one as well. This will also free up my Z palette for other things, which is nice. So in this palette, what's left, I have two Anastasia shadows from the Artist palette, which I'm going to keep. This is a Stila shadow, which I'm going to keep as well. But then all of these ones from the Sephora Pantone Universe palette thing are going. And I'm not using it as an excuse to buy new things. I just don't need to keep things that I'm not using. So that's the palette now. I'll be able to shuffle things around, maybe put some of those Anastasia ones in from that MAC one that were just not fitting in properly. Clean that up a bit too, because it's got shadow residue in there. I'll get to my other Z palette in a second. This is my newest palette purchase, the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette. Obviously, I'm not decluttering this one. I wanted to show it because I figured I could also sort of use this as maybe a general palette collection. So this is new to me, but it's beautiful. I've been enjoying using it. The formula's pretty good. The wear time's not great, but it does look really pretty short term. Urban Decay Naked 3 palette. I actually really like this palette. I think it's really beautiful. I don't use a lot of the darker shades that much, but I definitely use this half of the palette. This is an obvious keep for me. The Urban Decay Electric palette. This is a palette that I love to death. Again, it's dirty. My palettes are dirty. They're used. I don't bother to clean them, sorry. I know some people don't like to look at dirty palettes, but they're used. I don't just sit around and look at them. I actually put them on my eye. So sorry if that offends people. I have, this is a mangled palette from Forever 21 and it's really old. I used 2 of the shades that were in here for my Franken palette as well. So that's obviously these 2 shades. So I'm going to get rid of this because I'm not going to use the rest of the shadows. It's an easy thing to get rid of. Same thing for this little Pop Beauty one. I used 2 of these shades as well in my Franken palette. There's just 1 remaining, so I'll get rid of that. That's easy. Here's another thing I'm going to get rid of finally. I've only been talking about getting rid of this thing for like 2 years. This is the Star Studded palette from Kat Von D, and this is also super messy because I tried to depot this and I ended up wrecking one of the shadows. So this is such a mess. It's such a mess because I just tried to depot it and failed miserably. But anyway, I'm getting rid of that one finally, and it feels good. It feels good to get rid of that one. Here's another thing I think I'm probably going to get rid of. This is the Smoked palette from Urban Decay. Funny thing, my social media names came from this palette because every name I wanted to use when I was thinking of creating my channel was taken. And I had such a hard time coming up with things. I had so many variations of channel names, and this palette was sitting a few feet from me. And at that point, I still had the tag from the zipper on the side. And I looked at it and I was like, huh, Smoked Shadow, Shadow Smoked. That'll work. And now that's my name. So part of me wants to keep the palette for sentimental reasons, but I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it. Like, I know the story behind my name. Now you guys know the story behind my social media name, and I think that's good enough. I don't need to keep the palette to look at it. I barely even used it. Like, I used one of the shades to set my eyeshadow primer, but this was a shadow that was too dark, too much for me, and I just could not figure out how to use it without looking like a hot mess. So there's other shadows that I feel like I learned more from that I want to keep. What else? This palette. So this is the Alchemist palette from Kat Von D, and I actually was working on panning this palette. However, I dropped it multiple times to the point where things crumbled so much that it just became completely pointless and useless. And I was like hesitant to do a review on it, or not a review, but a update on my project, just because I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, it just got destroyed so many times. I lost so much product. I did not get a chance to use as much as I wanted to use. And then my sister sent me her Alchemist palette, and her palette looks pretty much new. So I'm going to keep the one she sent me, and I'm going to get rid of this one. I don't feel like I'm going to do a update on that palette with this anymore. So if you guys watch that, you'll know. And if anybody asks me, I'll refer them to this video, or just, you know, tell them, because the one that I was painting is gone. I don't need to keep 2 of them, and I might as well keep the better one, the one that even performs better. So I have a Becca palette, Ombre Rouge palette. I also have some pan on this guy here. This is a really nice palette as well. I'm going to keep that one. Part of the reason why I'm showing you guys these palettes as well, is to show you that I have use on them. And it's not just, like, I'm not keeping them and I'm not using them. Like, a lot of these things I actually do use. I have the Pure Soul Mattes palette, which I actually forgot about. I was using this a while last year, and I really loved it in the fall time, because look at those neutral matte shades. Like, this is a great fall palette. I have to put this out so I can use this more, because that's a good palette. I have this little palette from Smashbox. This is the Glam Femme Photo Op palette. One of these shades I had depotted as well. I'm gonna get rid of this. It really doesn't speak to me on any level. So that's an easy one to get rid of. This is my custom neutral palette from MAC. This is like holy grail status as well. These are just so many good shades that I love. I love using. This is the Venus palette from Lime Crime, another palette that I really, really love. The last time I traveled, which was like a year ago, I brought the Naked Basics palette and I brought this palette because I love these shades. I can do so much with it. I can go really soft and do something sort of subtle, or you can be really like bold, you can be really grungy. The formula is fantastic in this palette as well. It's like a better version of the Modern Renaissance. I know that might be blasphemous, but I just like the formula of the Lime Crime shadows better than the Anastasia generally. This is the Master Palette by Mario, also from Anastasia. This is probably going to be my Pan That palette next year, just because I hate these shadows. I like Subculture a lot, but I just don't like these. I just don't like them. And I've hit pan on quite a few of them. It's really easy to hit pan on this, so I feel like I'll have no problem finishing this. Again, I know that's blasphemous because it's limited edition, but if I wasn't going to be panning that, I'd probably end up getting rid of that palette. This is another Vice palette, Vice 2. This is one I'm probably going to have to get rid of pretty soon because it's definitely seen better days. My favorite shadow is this shade here, Shell Shock. This silver shadow. Again, a silver. And Urban Decay did recently make that shadow a single as well. I'm not sure how it compares to the one in the palette, but I definitely consider buying the single and getting rid of the palette at some point. Like, I really would like to finish Shell Shock, maybe a few other shadows, hit pan on a few more, but it's seen better days. It's a little well worn. I have this guy, the Blushed Nudes palette from Maybelline. Again, kind of the same reason why some of the other ones, but I'm keeping that one. I have a Kylie Cosmetics palette. This is the Holiday palette from last year, and it's not used that much. Again, it has a silver in it that I like, but I actually really like the formula of these shadows, and I've created a few looks with these shadows that I really ended up liking because they're really easy to work with. I find the formula to be somewhere around the Urban Decay MAC area, so they're very easy to work with, very easy to blend. The problem is that a lot of these shadows sort of look the same, so when I look at this palette, I find it a little difficult to kind of create a look, because I'll go for like the bronzy gold shade, I'll go for the silver, I'll use like the neutrals, but then like these five kind of stump me a little bit, so I just need to work it with other palettes. Here's an easy one. I'm gonna get rid of this one. Never. This is one of my favorite palettes of all time. Honestly, this would be the most perfect palette if I could swap out those middle neutral shadows for the Urban Decay Naked Basics palette. This would be all I would need in my life, more or less. Just, I love colors. I can do so much with this palette just on its own. I love mixing it with other things. This is just, I just recently did a tutorial inspired by Tom Petty's Full Moon Fever album where I used this palette only. There's just so much I can do with it, and I have done it. And most of the times when I'm using color, I'm using this palette and or the Urban Decay Electric palette. So they're just fantastic palettes, and that's one of my prized possessions. Like, that's, I know it's just makeup, but like if I was to lose my entire makeup collection, that's probably the one item I would cry over, just because it was limited edition and I can never get it back. Here is my last Z palette. So this has a huge mess of things in here as well. I need to clean this up, which is why I need to get rid of a bunch of these things. Some of these things, shadows, I used in my Franken palette, which is the last thing to show you guys. But these little square ones I'm going to take out because they're part of that elemental thing. So once I get rid of those ones, then I can go back and show you what's left. It's so dirty. Just from when I crushed up some of the shadows and I needed to kind of remove some of the shadow to put and mix in with other things, and it just, oh, what a mess. So it'll be nice to take everything out of the palettes, the Z palettes, and give them a good clean. I like that you can do that. I find it hard to clean some palettes sometimes because things get dirty and then it gets into the like little creases and stuff. So this is super dirty just from all that loose shadow, but I got rid of all those ones from the Elemental palette. So there's some Makeup Geek shadows there. These large circle ones are Stila. These small square ones are from the Artist palette from Anastasia, which I really regret depotting because I feel like I would use it more in its original packaging. This is a shadow from the Pop Fiction palette, which I almost want to glue back in. This is a palette from, or not a palette. Have I been saying everything is a palette? This is a shadow from the Smashbox one. So I'm going to take that one out. And then there's two more ones. These two here, these green shadows are from the Kat Von D Star-Studded palette. So I'm going to get rid of those ones as well. So that leaves me with a few Stila, some Makeup Geek, and some Anastasia. So I am going to end up taking all these shadows out and cleaning this palette as well as cleaning my other Z palette. And I feel like I'll be able to combine things better. Like I have this larger Z palette and I have the smaller one, and I'll be able to free up a Z palette, and then I am going to be looking at things that I'm missing, gaps, things that I've been looking for when I've been doing my makeup. Anyway, the last thing I wanted to show you guys was this guy. So I panned the Vice LTD palette and just decided to repurpose this for my Franken palette. So this is a bunch of custom eyeshadows. So some of the things I've gotten rid of, there were shadows in there. This is a bunch of random stuff. I was just playing Dr. Frankenstein. I was just creating my monster with a bunch of various things, adding in some glitter, mixing some different finishes together, just to see what I could come up with, just for fun. I haven't really used this a whole lot because I haven't really had a need to, but there's just a bunch of various shadows in different formulas, things that I wanted to play around with things. Like I used the same blue shadow for both of these, and it's just one is slightly different than the other. Like it was more of an experiment for fun than anything else. So I just wanted to see like what would happen if I put in like some silver with the blue, how it would change. Like it's very subtle differences. Some of these shadows, like they almost look identical until you swatch them, and you can just see like a bit of a subtle difference, just because I put in like a little bit of glitter, a little bit of a taupey shade, just so that I could play around and see what sort of things I could come up with. So they turned out pretty good for Franken shadows. I was pretty happy with them, but it was an experiment for no reason other than I wanted to experiment. So I just thought I would show you guys that, you know, some of my shadow creations there, mixing some of my unused stuff. And I feel like I can have some fun with this odd Franken palette. That is my entire palette, everything, shadow everything. I got rid of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 things, plus the, I guess 16 if you include the Sephora Pantone Universe palette that I took for my Z palette. 16 things. 16. I'm pretty happy with that. Obviously, I kept a lot more than I got rid of. But anyway, you guys saw it all. This was a super long video. It was very, very thorough. I hope you guys enjoyed this. You asked for a long, chatty declutter. And that's my thoughts. So I feel pretty good. I definitely think I can get rid of more at some point, but for now, this is major progress and I'm super happy with it. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns down below. I will do my best to answer you as soon as I possibly can. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now. Mwah!